Happy Wednesday night. Welcome to Deep in the Plus. I'm your host, Rob Whiteside. Thank you guys, as always, for being with us on this Wednesday night. We appreciate it. If you have not already, please subscribe to WDWNT TV and also hit like on this video as it helps people to find us. If you've never joined us, welcome. This is the show where we go deep into the Disney Plus catalog and find some things that maybe you haven't seen yet. This week, we're actually going deep into something that's brand new. It's the live action The Little Mermaid that has just dropped on Disney Plus a week ago. It is, as the article on our website has said, it is now one of the most successful movie premieres on Disney Plus for streaming. And so we figured we'd talk about it tonight. Me and my good friend Allison. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you, Rob?
I'm great. Thank you for doing this one with me. I know this is one that we had talked about before that you were like, man, I cannot wait to see this movie. You didn't see it in the theater. This is the first time you've seen it. You watched it on Disney Plus. Before we get into this, though, I need to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the 9 million remakes that Disney seems to make with live action. We've talked about it before, but I don't think you and I have talked about it before. I want to get your take on it. I mean, there's 61 full-length animated features. If you take out, say, the package films, you're left with maybe around 50. I feel like they've done about 20 of these already. Do you like it? Do you enjoy watching them? Tell me your live action remake philosophy.
Well, I neither love nor hate them. I think there are ones that I see, Beauty and the Beast I saw in theaters, and I watched Aladdin on a plane, and I enjoy them for what they are. But I don't think they need to be made generally. But if they're made, I might as well appreciate it and see what new actor brings something new to a character, what new thing they bring to a scene, or just how closely is it to the original that I remember from my childhood. It's a fun watch. Probably not worth all of the money they spend on them, all the time they spend on them. But if they're made, why not enjoy the ones that are appealing to you?
Yeah, I guess so. Some of them bother me. I'm gonna go ahead and say that. I like to like things. That I've not made
You
that a
do.
secret, whether it's here or on Park Center. I like to like things. I want to be excited about new things when they come out. And, part of it is a new film, whether it's a remake, is actually something that kind of is a resurgence. It's more content, and I love that. The thing that I have a problem with is when they're a carbon copy of the original. And I think that's what, I think you and I may have even talked about this. The Lion King is a carbon copy of the original, and it lacks something, too. It's a slightly longer version, and it lacks something, and it's got no new content. There's really nothing new that they're telling us there. There's no new songs. There's no new story. There's no twist
We
on it.
talked about that years ago on Park Center, you and I and Pete Carney defended it, and I was sort of excited to see it, and then I never watched it. So I think maybe you were right, that there wasn't enough there for me to justify the time. But
Yeah, no.
so I
I,
will concede I was wrong.
And again, I mean, let's see how these barges work during the day in the World Showcase Lagoon. I was on that page, but with that one, the first time I saw the Lion King intro was at a D23 Expo. They showed it in its entirety, and I was like, man, that is beautiful. It brought me to tears. It was fantastic. And then in watching the movie, and then seeing the casting going along, Donald Glover and Billy Eichner and all these actors that I enjoy, and then when they finally released it, and I go to watch it, I'm like, this is I'm waiting for the next thing. I'm waiting for the next joke. And I'm waiting. I mean, it's like it was so formula to the original one. When they did Aladdin, there's a little bit of a twist to it. When they did Beauty and the Beast, there's a whole little section about about the Black Death and what happened to her mom. And, there's other things about that one. There's a little bit of mystery, an extra song here and there. So I enjoy that when they do that. And Cruella and Maleficent are complete retakes on the entire story. We're getting a completely different look at a character that we already know and love. And I love that they kind of humanize Maleficent, and it makes sense where she's coming from there. So I want to keep that in mind as we're talking about The Little Mermaid, and that's the one we're here to talk about tonight. Obviously, when they first announced this one of the first things they talked about was Lin-Manuel Miranda's attached. Lin-Manuel Miranda is very divisive am I using the word divisive? It divides people. Some people love him and some people hate him. I'm usually on the team love him. Hamilton was amazing. I loved Hamilton. The music that he did for Encanto, I loved. There are a lot of people who are like, it's okay. I am very enamored by his talent. The idea of what he can put together. I don't think he did it here with this music. There are 3 new songs in this. There were supposed to be 4. I don't know if you looked at the extra features. There was supposed to be Javier Bardem as King Triton was supposed to be doing one. I think it was called Impossible Girl. And when we watched it, I was just like, there's a reason they left that one out. There's a new song for Eric. Because let's just jump into the music, because the music is what we love about the Alan Menken, Howard Ashman movies of the original Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin. So the first one is the one that Eric sings. The second one is the one that she sings, I think, in her head. And then the third one is the Scuttlebutt. Talk about Scuttlebutt. What did you hate about Scuttlebutt? Because you're shaking your head already.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we'll first talk about, I loved Eric's song. And by the way, I was like very skeptical about the casting of that man as I was like when he first came on the screen, and then when he sang, I was like, oh no, I'm all in for this to be Eric in live action. Scuttlebutt, I had been warned about, I didn't see it in the theater. So lots of people saw it before I got to see it on Disney Plus. And of course that was like widely panned. And I really like Aquafina usually, but that was like painful to do and watch. But at least it wasn't as long as I expected. That's like the only thing I thought it was going to go on even longer than it did. But yeah, it's unpleasant.
I'm looking at the chat about the Lin-Manuel Miranda. Jarrett says I am also a fan, but I think it's kind of like enough already for people. Like he has a hand in everything. I think Disney saw an opportunity when they brought him into the fold for movies like Moana and Encanto to rewrite the music for this one. And I think he's kind of amazing. But this one, it just didn't seem like it was there. The Eric song, I'm calling it the Eric song because I don't even remember. Like it didn't hit me in a special like oh wow that was amazing. The Scuttlebutt thing hit me in the why are we doing this? And you could tell as a Lin-Manuel Miranda, it's like, okay, Aquafina, can you sing? No, not a problem. We got you on the rap side. We did this with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. We can get you through it as well. They bring her in and do that. It was okay.
She's a musician. She's not a singer, but she's a musician. Like she's famous because she is a musical artist, but that was painful.
Yeah, exactly. So honestly, I think the one song that there are 2 songs that I think that he helped. One of them is "Poor Unfortunate Souls," because again, for that one, and we'll talk about Melissa McCarthy's take on Ursula in a bit, but for that one, I feel like it added something. He added some lyrics to it that made it different. And then there was the second, reprise or reprise? Where are we going?
Reprise.
Reprise, good. So the second reprise of her singing as she is like, kind of sullen on the rocks, and she's got that inner monologue song going. The kind of part of your world, that one I liked the word choice on that one. So I think those 2 is like he plussed them out. I expected that's what he would be doing, not writing new songs for it. And the 3 plus the Javier Bardem, that if you go and watch the extras on Disney Plus, you can go ahead and check that out and go, yep, I'm glad they left that one out. It was really weird. It just didn't bring
I'm not surprised. I was sort of disappointed in his performance overall, actually, so it's not surprising to me.
But otherwise, I think the music all sounded good. We got a chance to see Halle Bailey sing "Part of Your World" or that whole scene at the D23 Expo last year, so I knew that was going to be solid. She had a little bit of a twist of her own on it, which I liked. I thought that was good. And I know Jodie Benson is the quintessential. She is our Little Mermaid, and she was just at Destination D23. She sang "Part of Your World," but the whole thing with that one is that she's got. They're sending the emergency team to you right now, it sounds like. The whole thing with that is that like that's what we're used to for the past what 30 years. That's what we've been hearing is, Jodie Benson
Hmm.
as part of your world. She was the singing and the speaking voice for that. She's in this. She actually passes the baton, but in this case, the dingle hopper to
Hmm.
the new Ariel. That was an interesting scene too. I feel like it was very downplayed her part in that one, as opposed to in Mulan. Ming Na Wen comes in this like beautiful gown, like it's more of a presentation when we get to see her cameo. But I'm glad she had a cameo in it. I thought it was neat the way they did it.
Hmm.
But again, the music, I think in general was good. David Diggs singing, his songs I thought was good. The Aquafina wah
Yeah.
wah wah during Kiss the Girl I could have done without. But in general, I thought the rest of the music was good. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I was, there were parts that were removed from Poor Unfortunate Souls. I like the body language line because it's so well delivered in the original. And I knew it was cut, but I didn't miss it when I watched this new rendition. I thought it was just really well done. I thought Melissa McCarthy did a great performance, like different but great. And I liked Under the Sea. Like I didn't think that I would like a live action rendition of that, but I really liked it. And David Diggs, it's like kind of like his ability to like sing in various accents is like kind of unparalleled.
All right, I wasn't going to talk about this yet, but we talked about this a little
Oh,
bit in
sorry.
Ever After the accents. You just brought up accents, and
Mhm.
it set me off.
Yeah,
So the accents in this are all over the place.
they are.
I mean, Halle Bailey's character is she speaks English. She speaks American English.
Mhm.
Javier
Yes,
Bardem
and her
has the
voice was very much like Jodie Benson's, and like it matched the character's voice very well in the speaking. Like that sounded like Ariel to me. Thought she was amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, Javier Bardem. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it has obviously, his own accent, and then each of his daughters had their own accent, and then in the movie, in the animated movie, I gotta differentiate because they're both the movie, but in the animated movie, we have Vanessa, and Vanessa is the embodiment of Ursula. I don't know if they named her Vanessa in this one. I don't
Yeah,
know if they
I don't
would like
remember. I don't
so.
remember a name.
So Vanessa is the embodiment that Ursula uses to come on land and use the voice of Ariel. And so when she's doing that, she sounds like Ariel
Yeah.
because that's the voice. In this one, the Vanessa is got a British accent for some strange reason. Ursula doesn't have one.
No, no,
So
it
again,
didn't
the
make any
the
sense.
the consistency, you go to such great lengths to be consistent in a movie these days because people are going to be watching it with a very they're going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and in this particular case I was just like, can we just have some consistency with the accents? This may be legend or rumor, but in the Wonder Woman movie, I read somewhere that the Themyscirans all use Gal Gadot's accent because she can't not do her accent, and so in Themyscira, that is their native accent is the one that Gal Gadot has, and I think that's brilliant because Robin Wright Penn, she can act, and so she has no problem adapting to that. So I feel like there should have been a common like, okay, let's all be on the same page about what accent we're using because we're all from the same place. Now maybe in Under the
Yeah,
Sea, maybe not,
yeah.
but yeah, it's just weird, right?
Yeah, and it was also confusing as to like where is this place anyway? Like I figured out eventually like this is some random Caribbean island, but it didn't like I was trying to ground it. I'm like, oh, is this like Mediterranean? Like where is this supposed to be? Is it supposed to be like off the coast of Denmark because it's a Hans Christian Andersen tale? I'm not sure, and the accents weren't helping. But I also think like me, I consider myself somebody like usually pretty attuned to accents because I like language. And Prince Eric's accent, I thought was like all over the map. And I was like, this guy's got to be an American trying to put on an accent. And he wasn't. He's actually British. But to me, it didn't sound like British royalty. It sounded almost like some Manchester kind of like low class British accent. So it was just like it didn't fit. There were a lot of times where like I think the accents were jarring and took me out of it. I did
Yeah.
appreciate Aquafina's, native Queen's accent though, but that's, I'm from
Works
there, so
perfectly.
that's
Work.
soothing to me.
Yeah. Um, okay, so there are some differences in this movie from the original movie. There's a couple different things that happen, and we'll talk about that. But I want to talk about the length. So they took an 83-minute movie and they made it 2 hours and 20 minutes. And
Wow.
yet I don't know that they added a lot. So it's just like this the stretching of it is very odd to me that they've added this much to it. Yes, they added those three new songs, but none of them were very long, and yet
No.
it's very strange to me that it's so long. And as when we picked this movie and we sat down to watch it, I almost like reached out to you like 2.5 like 2 hours and 20 minutes. What the heck?
No.
Like the original's 83 minutes. It's one of the shortest Disney movies. Like it's kind of insane. But again, obviously they've added some stuff to it. They did some switcheroos. Fathoms Below is what opens up the animated Little Mermaid, but we don't. But we hear Part of Your World before we hear Fathoms Below, which I thought was interesting. And then, of course, we meet each of these characters, and let's talk about the cast a little bit. David Diggs is Sebastian. I love that.
Yeah,
Like
perfect.
Samuel Wright passed away, unfortunately, the original Sebastian. But I don't know that he would have made a comeback the same way that James Earl Jones did for The Lion King. But Daveed Diggs, I think, was good. Jacob Tremblay is Flounder. Is he going to play a kid for the rest of his life? I mean, he's what now 18, and he sounds like so Jacob Tremblay is the voice of Flounder, which again, interesting. Melissa McCarthy, I feel like this could have been horrible, and yet I felt like she did an amazing job.
She killed it. She is very, very talented. I've been a fan of hers for a long time because my favorite show is Gilmore Girls, and she's sort of a side regular character in Gilmore Girls, and is like very different from her normal comedy, where she's like really kind of I don't know, just a huge personality. She's sort of like bubbly and fun and sweet in that. But she comes from like the improv world, and I think and she's also been nominated for an Oscar for like a drama. Like she's like just got this incredible range, and I think she really took this very seriously. Like really showed up and did this well.
And all the ceiling work she did, that was so cool.
Yeah.
um Again, she could have she could have just remade Pat Carroll's like entire thing, but I feel like she made it a little bit her own without it being the Molly of Mike and Molly doing Ursula. It was she
Mhm.
gave it enough of of a I'm honestly, I'm going to say this and it's going to sound stupid. I think this is the best acting she's ever done.
That doesn't sound stupid.
Because I think
Um,
normally she is
yeah.
always Melissa McCarthy, and I feel like in this one she's better.
I
I don't know.
Yes, I think she inhabited this character. I think she knows how to do like inhabit a character, and I can't remember the name of the movie where she was nominated for the Oscar. That's like a drama and very very dark and sad, and she's plays a writer in it. Um, and it's like she's unrecognizable, but you can see that kind of range. I think like the only person that I can think of with this kind of range is like Alison Janney, who's like my favorite actress. But you can see her; she's like in American Beauty, but she's also in Drop Dead Gorgeous and Juno, and like can play like an abused wife and can play like this like larger than life personality. And Melissa McCarthy does that exact thing here. She's got real range, and she like compared to Javier Bardem, who I feel like did not take this seriously and kind of phoned it in. She really like was like, I'm not going to mess this up. This is iconic, and
Oh,
I'm going to do this. It's going to be recognizably Ursula, but I'm going to add something to it. That's what
oh,
she
we'll
did.
get to him. We will get to Javier. Kat in chat says I thought she did really well. She was Ursula. She channeled it. Yeah. I agree. Again, she plussed it out though. I feel like she was a little bit more than just, again, I think Billy Eichner was like Nathan Lane, like he was doing an impersonation almost of Nathan Lane in The Lion King. The shot for shot, everything was the same. In this one, I feel like she really did kind of bring it. So, yeah, I agree. Fire Chief 66 says live action Beauty and the Beast was in French Village, and most everyone had a British accent. That is true. Yeah, I don't know. There's some things like, I
It's
feel
like
like, I
ever
don't know if
after.
that was all over the place too. But that's again, that's when I went off on it the first time. I feel like it's just, I want some consistency. Like, just like I've said before, if I know the mechanics of why Superman can fly, even if it's out of this world, not possible, I just want to know the rules, and then I buy in. So give me the rules. Tell me what the rules are about why everybody just brings whatever accent they need to bring. And David Diggs is bringing Sebastian the Crab with the Caribbean accent that we hear from Samuel Wright. So that's on on par with the character and for the area. So I feel like that works, but the rest of them, it just seems a little bit odd. When we're talking about the Ursula Poor Unfortunate Souls and them bringing that to life, there's a lot of these scenes that I thought to myself, how are they going to do that? Just the same way in Beauty and the Beast. How are they going to do Be Our Guest? How are they going to do Under the Sea and Kiss the Girl? And for Under the Sea, they went like full jellyfish, which are you supposed to touch them that way? I feel like that's bad.
It's
I don't.
very funny you say that because I watched this with Avon. She didn't make it through the whole thing because it's 2.5 hours, but I watched it with my daughter, who's 4.5, and she's like, she just got stung because she's seen Nemo.
There's a great making of again on Disney Plus about how they used actual dancers and then did sort of mocap around them to make to make these characters come to life. And I think they did a really good job of making it somewhat in the real world, somewhat realistic, as opposed to like a fish with a saxophone or a drum that
Right.
sits in the bottom of the sea. There is some, these are actual things that could be in the ocean moving in a way that humans move, and so I think that they did a really neat interpretation of this. And I think that credit goes to Rob Marshall. I feel like, as the director, he is the musical director that brought Mary Poppins Returns, and I feel like Disney's go-to guy for musicals right now.
Yeah, yeah. I did find the style to be somewhat like Wyland-esque. Like there's something about that you can imagine like a Wyland trapper keeper or something like exactly in these kind of color schemes. But it was like a really good balance of somewhat realistic
Yeah.
and also still like entertaining to watch because I wouldn't really want to watch something that's like 100% realistic. I still want it to feel animated
Yeah,
and
this one
like
still has
magical.
all of that. Yeah, all of that
Hmm.
magic. I think of the scene that we know from Under the Sea. So I do think this was the show-stopping number that it needed to be, and I thought the interpretation was done pretty well. But um, the Kiss the Girl one, I mean, it's like they set it up so that it makes sense that they're in a boat, and why that would be is that Scuttle, steals Eric's hat and drops it in a boat because it's all part of this plan. And an interesting twist, by the way, again, a thing that's different in this movie is that they make it that Ariel has been made as part of the spell to forget that she has a mission here, to forget that she has to kiss Eric before the sun sets on the third night, or else she won't. She won't have her happily ever after. And I thought that was an interesting twist. And it's nice that Sebastian figures it out, because that's the thing too, is that if another character doesn't figure it out, then it's just weird. So Sebastian figures out that every time he pushes her about this kiss, that she puts it behind her. Now he knows he needs to step in, which is what he's doing anyway, reluctantly in the animated one, but in this one he's doing it because he wants to help
Yeah.
all along. He's a little less
Which
reluctant, I
happens
think, in
like,
this one.
yeah, it happens like a switch, right? Because he's all in, and he's saying the same things he says in the animated thing to King Triton. He's like, you've got to control her or whatever. And then he just sees her sing once and is like, nope, oh, she loves him. I'm going to do whatever I can to make that happen and to hide this from her father.
Yeah.
But also, I think it was necessary because basically Flounder disappears. So the whole like the positive sidekick foil is like gone, and so you just have Sebastian. And so I think he sort of has to do both roles because you lose Flounder after the first 25% of the movie. Hardly see him.
Yeah. That makes sense. The other thing is that we get to meet Eric's mom, the queen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that they made this obvious early to say, hey, look, so Grimsby is like, kind of the family, like he's the guy that helps out, Sir Grimsby, and in this case, like his mom, they say is adopted mom. They tackle that early. I don't know that we even meet or deal with the mom. But in the animated, but in this one, she's a big part. Yeah, she's a big part of this. I don't know that she needs to be. That's my hot take. Like, did we need her?
No, probably not. But I think it was nice to give a little bit more background to Eric, and so probably didn't need to meet her, but the background a little bit about his family and his like wanderlust and like his like desire to like that he also collects items from various corners of the world and has his own like essentially grotto. That was all really nice character development. And it's funny because when I think about what they added, I don't feel like it was like 40 extra minutes to this movie. I don't know where that is. It feels like 8 extra minutes. I don't know. It's hard for me to feel like those scenes did much, but if I didn't feel like it was a negative to have mom. No, she wasn't necessary, but physically have her character there. She didn't add anything, but it wasn't the thing that added the extra 40 minutes. Still can't identify where that went. So I'm certainly not a critique I'm going to make.
Did you see High School Musical 2?
I did.
When Troy Bolton goes like just like angst, like driven like across the golf course, like singing his angsty song. That's yes. Eric. That's him singing his angsty song as he's like falling across, just screaming at the world and just roaming down the road. And yeah, I mean that's my comparison there.
Well, yes, but I was like, oh, they gave Prince Eric an I Wish song, which is kind of nice because then it puts him sort of on the same plane, and you're rooting for him in the same way as Ariel, which is cool. And also, we needed to have that man sing. His voice is beautiful. And otherwise, I felt like he did not live up to my expectations of what Eric would look like in live action form. But as soon as he sang, I was all in.
But the song, you liked it, or you just liked that he had one?
I liked the song. I think you're right that it's not memorable. I can't hum it. I can't recall it, but he sang it well and it showcased his voice really well. It's just like this really beautiful tenor, lyrical kind of sounding voice. And I'm glad that it was in there so that we could hear him and I could just stop judging Eric's lack of what I wanted Prince Eric's hair to look like.
Was he dreamy?
When he sang, I'll say that. Before then, I was like, him? Really? But okay. Yeah, he grew on me.
Did this guy ever grow on you? Javier Bardem as King Triton. Like you said, it almost seems like he didn't. I don't know. He didn't really do anything specifically that made me think, oh, he's just kind of awful. But he also didn't do anything that made me think, yes, King, that's my king, that's King Triton. I mean, I don't. I
felt like
it seemed like a weird pull.
In the lines, and it was just, I don't know what it is, but it's funny. I have a very hard time recognizing faces. And so I looked at my husband as watching, I was like, is this guy famous? Because he's bad. And he's like, that's our
No Country for Old Men.
You idiot. And And I was like, oh, I should have. Now I see it. But also, like I don't. He is just. It's almost like a table read where he's just like reading it for the first time, and like it's not like there's nothing behind it. He hasn't given thought to it. He had. It's almost like he hadn't watched the original and decided whether he was going to try to match the delivery of that voice or make a choice to sound different for some reason. It just sounded like, oh, I'm just going to read the words on this page. And that's what you're going to get. And I'm going to collect my check and be on my way.
Yeah. Well, don't. I mean, go back and listen to that song, and then tell me if you like him anymore, because I don't know that you would. Um, One thing about Sebastian though is the animation of Sebastian is interesting because it's not quite an actual crab, but it's more of a crab than Sebastian is. Like the eyes are
Mm-hmm.
definitely more caricature of a crab, and he's got a little bit weird, setup. But I think that in general, I buy him as a crab more so than Sebastian because he almost looks like a cross between a crab and a lobster in the way he's made.
Mm-hmm.
The animated one. The animated one.
Yeah,
They're both
you're right. It
animated.
looks almost
Again, I don't know
like
what
a
I'm saying.
crawfish kind of.
Yeah.
Sebastian's a little more crawfish-esque, and yeah, this looks more like a crab. The entire time, my husband was complaining next to me, saying that Sebastian looked kind of like a cube because he was just like his face was kind of scrunched in, and then, but it hadn't been bothering me, and then he said that, and then I was kind of looking for it, but I don't know. I thought it was good. I thought it was better than like than flounder. So I'll take this.
Better than flounder. Yeah, flounder didn't look anything like flounder was supposed to look. Um, there are a couple of other, uh, dare I say, iconic scenes in this one that again are things that you were feel like had to be staples of the Little Mermaid when she's swimming up to the top and she
Mm-hmm.
does the big hair flip out of the water. I mean that's almost like
Amazing.
exact like yeah. I think that her treasure trove is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I think
Back
they
to the
did a
hair
good
flip
job.
though. I had heard about what she had to do to be able to get that hair flip because she has a lot of hair. It's very long, and the reality is when hair is wet, it's very heavy. So she like had to like weight train her neck to be able to do that and make it do that in the image. So really incredible performance in so many levels.
Yeah. And then the other iconic scene was the one on the rock when when she's like
Hmm.
when she's going up the rock, you're like, oh, it's happening. And I don't want to show too much because I think YouTube will flag it, but then she does the part of your world and the splash
Yeah.
happens and the whole thing and it's like okay, all right, yeah, well there's some good nods to the original that they were like okay, these are iconic scenes that should be in there, we got to make sure that that happens. So I give them props for that, but again when I see that I'm also like be careful, I need to see this but also I don't need this to be a shot for shot remake of the original because why, like what are you doing? um but I again I think that the music, I think that they did a good job with the music in general. I just didn't like the new songs. I did like the songs that were added into. I like the poor unfortunate souls and stuff like that. So so as this is going along, we've talked about the cast and we've talked about the songs, and some of the differences that happened. Let's talk about the one cast member that I haven't really like focused in on too much is Scuttle. What? Why? What? Like, I mean, okay. So part of the problem that I have is that the original Scuttle is amazing. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, I just I don't know why you would need to go. Okay, this bird actually dives under the water instead. It's not a seagull, and also we'll make it a female character. I don't know. Do you disagree?
I, I think like I was warned that Aquafina was so bad that I thought I like when your expectations and the bar set really low and it's somehow not as bad as you thought it was going to be. Um, then it didn't bother me as much. And I think like so on the whole, Scuttle didn't bother me. Neither like the way they that it wasn't a seagull, that it was this other kind of like amphibianous like uh, bird, and and the voice didn't bother me. I kind of liked the New York accent. I thought it was funny, which doesn't jive with anything we've already critiqued about, like the various accents. But I just thought it was very funny. The song was a travesty, and it should not have happened. But the rest of Scuttle like didn't bother me, and Aquafina's performance didn't bother me. But again, I think like so much of that is being warned off of it, and then being like, this is not as bad as I thought. My best friend, who I grew up with, like playing The Little Mermaid when we were little girls, she saw it before me, and she texted me while she was watching it. She was like, "This is unwatchable. I can't. It's so bad. I can't." So that is like that's the bar that was set for me when I was going to watch this movie.
But I don't know, like it's one of those things that when you're in your own bubble and you watch it, and anybody who's watching, and we appreciate you guys watching. Thank you guys so much. If you haven't already, give us a thumbs up. It's one of those things that like you're like, what are other people thinking about this? And it's not until we get together in a group like this and talk about it and go, I didn't love Javier Bardem as King Triton, or I didn't love Eric's song or Scuttlebutt or whatever else. And you hear things, and sometimes it shapes whether you decide you're going to watch a movie or not. That's kind of what we want to help out with here. And again, I think it brings something to it that I always want to like something. And so as I'm watching this, I'm looking for the positives in it. There are some things in it that I do like. But the diving bird versus the seagull, I don't know why you make that change. The whole deal with it, like, Buddy Hackett was just, he is Scuttle. I mean, again, Samuel L. Wright was the original Sebastian. I think Daveed Diggs does a great job. Pat Carroll was the original Ursula. I think that we get a great job out of Melissa McCarthy, and that Halle Bailey I think is a great Ariel. But I don't know what you were thinking here. You're trying to put a square peg into a round hole with this one, because you're like, this isn't the spirit of the original. I do get it's the whole like, I don't know, the kind of clueless bird thing. I guess that part of it's there, but the rest of it is like, I don't
It
know.
was a new reimagined Scuttle, and I was like totally fine with that. I was also
Okay.
fine with like the new reimagined Grimsby, because the other Grimsby is sort of like is more cartoonish. He's like
He's
throwing
more
up over
uppity.
the side of the boat. He's kind of he's uppity, and this one is like benevolent and like paternal and sweet, and just like I think at one point I was like, "Oh, Grimsby," like which that I didn't have that response to the original one. So I'm okay with that change. In fact, maybe that change is even better, especially in live action when it doesn't have to be so cartoonish.
Yeah.
Scuttle, I'm okay with the reimagining of that one character. I didn't think I would be, given all of the warnings I
Can we talk about the elephant in the room?
had. What's that?
Where was Le Poisson?
I know.
And again, we're talking about a movie that is 83 minutes versus a movie
Mm-hmm.
that's 2 hours and 20 minutes. Why did you take this one out? This one's a fun little song, and it's again, it's this rivalry between Sebastian and this chef, and I feel like that's that's a neat part of the original one. Like, I don't know why you would take that one out.
I don't know either. I was sort of waiting for it, and there was a moment where I thought it was going to happen. I can't remember. It was like maybe it was when Scuttle drops Sebastian. I thought maybe he was going to like fall into the kitchen somehow. He just like went straight down to the water. I wasn't sure exactly what it was going to happen, but there were a couple of times where I thought this is happening, and then it didn't, and then I forgot by the end of the movie. But again, this is one of those questions where it's like, why is this 40 minutes longer? They cut this, and the stuff they added doesn't feel that long. I don't understand where this movie went.
Yeah. Like, so the Le Poisson is actually in the Broadway, because there was a Broadway Little Mermaid that they did. It didn't last long on Broadway, but then it
On
toured.
Heelys. They wore Heelys on stage. Those like that were really popular at the time. They were like sneakers with the wheel and the heel, so that's how they looked like they were sort of like swimming around stage.
Yeah. But they took out Les Poissons and they took out the Daughters of Triton.
Hmm.
We are the Daughters of Triton.
Instead, it was just
And,
some random meeting that she was missing. It was
right?
like so much more dramatic when she just like doesn't appear in the clamshell.
She didn't miss the concert. She missed the UN uh, assembly. Apparently, that was yeah. It was weird. It was a little bit different, and it made it smaller, right? Because that in that scene with the the Daughters of Triton singing, there everyone in the kingdom is there, and we see them all, and we're like introduced to this world. And in this one, it's just like King Triton sullenly sitting there with like an empty stump where his daughter is supposed to be sitting. And yeah, it seemed like it had less. I don't know. It just seemed less. And then there were other new songs in the Broadway one that none of them made it into this. So when they looked at this, they were looking at the animated, and they were and Alan Menken was behind some of those. So it's weird to me that he wouldn't try to introduce any of those songs. But they sat down and looked at this and said, okay, this is the original. Let's add some more songs to it. Let's add one for King Triton. Let's add one for Eric. Let's add one for Scuttle, and then another one for Ariel that she sings in her head, which was kind of cool. There was a scene where she's singing it out loud, it looks like, but then when she turns around, it's still in her head because she has lost her voice and she's only singing in her head.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I just thought that was a weird choice to make it that much longer a movie, add a couple brand new songs, and take out some of the originals. Like that's not something I've seen
Yeah.
them do before. Is to take out the originals, except for Mulan. That's a movie we didn't talk about. Is in Mulan, there's none of it. Like that's
Yeah.
a weird that was a weird choice to do, and to me that made that movie very different from the original, and it's worth seeing both. But anyway, so Le Poisson, hee hee hee, ha ha ha, it's not in here. Um, so let me just ask you, and I'm not going to ask you any trivia about this because we've watched it for the first time here, and I feel like we're good on that one. I don't think we need to do that. So, whew. And Desi's in chat going, wait a minute, why do I never get those to miss the trivia part of it? But I guess anything else that you could think of as far as a difference between the original animated movie and this one that stood out to you as a positive or a negative?
Okay, so there's one difference. I don't know if this is positive or negative, but the fashion. So I think like some of the of Ariel's clothes in the original are iconic, and they were very much inspired by the late '80s aesthetic of like big puffy sleeves and all this stuff. In this, like when she puts on the blue dress that she wears for the rest, basically the entire movie while she's except for when she's in the wedding scene. She puts on the blue dress, and I thought it was going to look something like the one they have her wearing when she and Eric are on the outing. Instead, it's sort of like fitting now, like right now, like the cottage core aesthetic or like the nap dress. And I don't know if anyone who's like watching or listening knows exactly. If you know what I'm talking about, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Um, but so now they have like they try to make it of the time just as they had in the animated feature, but with like whatever the modern aesthetic is for reimagining that, rather than going with like the 80s style. So I don't know if I like it better or worse. The one thing I was really sad about is that we didn't get to see her like sparkly dress when she came out of the sea after her dad gives her permanent legs, because that is like the dress of my childhood dreams, and I didn't get to see that in the live action version, so that's a negative. But I'm not sure how I feel about like her wedding dress and the blue dress. It's just like sort of notable that it's like a departure from what I saw in the original.
Okay, that's I feel like that's Allison's fashion corner. That's great. One of the things that I guess that we haven't talked about yet, and you mentioned it, but I think is a bigger deal to me than maybe it should have been, was that Eric has a trove of his own. Eric has all of these things from the sea that he has kind of acquired, because he has the same fascination with the sea that she does with the land. And that to me was like, kind of like you were talking about with his longing song. This is like a kismet situation. They're both, they're both looking
Hmm.
for the other thing, and maybe they were looking for each other, to get deep about it, but that's what we do in Deep in the Plus, right? The one thing though that bothered me, that seemed a little cheesy, is when he's like, "This is the Little Mermaid," and he hands her the Little Mermaid,
Yeah.
and it's just like, oh my gosh, he said the titular line. Finally, there's a titular line to this movie. The Little Mermaid gets handed off to Ariel. But as he's going through the trove, and like there's this rock that he's like, oh, this is the best thing. It's in pristine condition. And then she takes it and goes, oh, I know exactly what this is. And she takes it and she throws it on the floor. And he's like,
Hmm.
no. And then there's something better in it. I swear, if somebody came in here and grabbed one of my popcorn buckets, I don't care what was in it, and just threw it on the floor to crack it open, I would be devastated. Don't even try it, lady. But he's learning from her these things that he has, and what they actually can do that he didn't know they could do before. So I think the
Hmm.
trove is very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's not a trove, it's like his treasure room, but it's the same as her trove.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's his version of grotto. I like that they both, like, you're building up their characters as they're both really curious. They're both interested in other cultures. They're both like, their default is not to be suspicious of people who live life differently or are just other in some way, but to find out more about them and humanize them and find the good. And I think that that's really cool to build that up in him, because then it's a little bit less like, okay, this 16-year-old girl fell in love at first sight with a stranger, and I don't know, dad might be right, like maybe don't throw away your life for this, but more of like a soulmate kind of situation.
Yeah. I just, again, I think it brings more depth to the character of Eric. If this movie's doing anything, it's bringing more depth to his character than anything else,
Right.
I think. Like you said, like mentioning the his parents, or why, how he's there, and he didn't grow, like he wasn't born into royalty, but he grew up in royalty. And then they don't really kind of, I don't think they really say like where he was originally from. Maybe it's a Ray situation where we're going to retcon that later, as in where he originally came from. But they he grew up as the prince, and as such is expected to become the king, etc., etc. So again, I think it was neat looking into a little bit of his backstory. Just like the original, we don't really know about much about mom. They at least mention mom in this one. That like going up to the surface is forbidden in the first one, but I don't think they
Hmm.
get into the whole mom thing until Ariel, the beginning, which I don't know if you've watched that one or not. There are two animated sequels that came direct to DVD. One was uh,
Return to the Sea. I
yeah,
did see
Ariel,
that.
yeah, Ariel, the Little
I
Mermaid 2,
owned
Return to the
that.
Sea, with Melody. Yeah, my son called it the
Yes, with
Melody movie.
Melody.
Yeah.
It's a
Um,
terrible movie, but that was a movie I watched over and over as a joke with my best friend, who said this is unwatchable, and he's like, the woman who said this is unwatchable made me get the Return to the Sea direct to DVD 20 years ago. So
Titanic, Tip, and Daring Dash, adventurers slash explorers. Yes, and then Ariel, the beginning, where we find out about mom. And then in this one again, at least they kind of talk about that as the reason that she can't go to the surface, because I don't think they make that clear in the first one. He's just being unreasonable,
yeah,
which
yeah.
this King Triton kind of is too. Is he's
Well,
just
they
like,
say in the original, he's like, I don't want my youngest daughter snared by some fish eater's hook. That is a line. So it is like clear that he's worried about the dangers that humans pose, but it's unclear that it is something that is like a real threat, so much as like maybe an invented, or like, I don't know, the catastrophizing that all parents sort of go through when their children are not within their eyesight.
yeah. Um, so I'm a huge Tron fan, as you probably know, 1982's Tron. And when Tron Legacy came around, I was like, oh, good. This is actually a continuation and an homage to the original while telling a new story. It's Flynn's son. Um, I do you wish, as a Little Mermaid fan, do you wish they had kind of gone in that direction with this rather than retelling the story?
I don't know because I didn't see that movie. I don't know how that would have been executed. Um, I'm with you that in general, a shot for shot remake is like not enough to justify watching. This was a little bit more than that, but a little less than probably would have liked to see. I think a little more maybe would have been great, but as long as it's not even longer than the 2 hours and 40 minutes, they would have to figure out some way to plus it and then also cut the runtime down significantly.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so with this one, after this movie was over, they had meet and greets in the theme park for the Little Mermaid, and here's a picture of her in her blue dress, which actually looks a little different to me. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it's not the same as in the movie, but
Yeah.
it is that cottagecore aesthetic.
Yeah. They had a meet and greet opportunity at Hollywood Studios, I believe, and then also Disneyland Paris, and then also at Disneyland. So they did have chances for people to meet Ariel in the parks, and then they've announced that there's going to be a new Disney Junior series, Disney Junior Ariel, that is
Oh.
coming very soon to Disney Junior. So there is, a continuation of this almost reboot, I guess, of the Little Mermaid. So, but again, the original still exists the same way that like when Cruella came out, we don't see just the Emma Stone Cruella. We also see the one that stepped right out of the comic book from the past. So, being able to have more content, I think, is a good idea. It's just an interesting thing to me with live actions, and here we've got more coming. We've got Snow White, which has been a little controversial because they're not going to be doing dwarves necessarily. They're having seven magical creatures, as far as we know. And then we've got the Stitch one, which I know our good friend Jake is going to want to like criticize that. There's, I can't imagine it's not going to look a little freaky or horrifying. Man, there is a lot of craziness going on in your neighborhood.
So
But then,
living life in a city, I tune it out. I don't even hear it, so I apologize.
no, all no, all good. Um, so I mean, there are more. They're not done, and I think again, like I said, the live action retelling is very. People are divided whether they enjoy it or they just despise it because it's remaking, redoing movies that they remember very fondly. So every time I hear of a new one, I'm like, I'm not sure. When they announced this one again, Lin Manuel Miranda was attached. I was like, yeah, let's see what happens here, and I, again, I have some overall thoughts that we'll get to. Is there anything else before we wrap this up that you wanted to talk about specific about this telling?
No, I think we've got it.
You think we've got
Got
it?
all my notes.
Uh,
Yeah, I got all my
okay.
notes. Mentioned at
We,
some
we
point.
we checked off all the boxes.
Yes.
Okay. Um, so so again, I feel like the big question here a lot of times is was it necessary to do this? That's what I would ask because there's so much possible content in the world. I don't think you need to remake things all the time. I think there's always the opportunity for sequels. There are some things that I've said over and over again. Please don't make a sequel of Nightmare Before Christmas. It is perfect in its box where it is. I don't need to see Jack going into Thanksgiving land. I don't need that to happen. So there were some things like that where I'm like, you've told the story, you're good. There are other things like Tron where I think they can go back. Tron Ares, the third movie, is still set to come out with Jared Leto taking part in that one. I think that's a good thing. Somewhere where maybe you could do something better, like the Haunted Mansion. The original 2003 Haunted Mansion. A lot of people didn't love it. They feel like that attraction needed something a little scarier. They took a lot of takes on it, and so we have the new one, which comes out on October 4th. So you can watch that one and tell us what you think about that one. And then after all of those, like you've got those movies like Tower of Terror that they've been talking about and rumoring that they're going to make that. But when you go back to these original IP, I still think they need to go back to movies that didn't really get a fair shake at the box office, like Treasure Planet or like Atlantis, and maybe do something there to a movie that needs a second life, a second chance, rather than taking something that was kind of perfect where it was and remaking it. That's just my opinion on the live actions. Thoughts?
I mean, I think that's right. I don't think it's necessary. Um, but I enjoyed this. So I was happy. I didn't think I was going to, but I enjoyed this. And I just sort of take them one by one and see. And I think you do the same. Like, it's not like a blanket, like, overall, this is not necessary. And maybe you should be identifying other properties you should breathe more life into. I agree with that. Um, but then when it happens, and even if it's not like perfectly well done, I still enjoy it for what it is.
Well, honestly, what we just need in our lives is more Muppets. So we just need to get that to get the word out there about that. Thank you guys so much for watching with us on Deep in the Plus every Wednesday night. We appreciate it. Next Wednesday night, I feel like I know what's coming up next Wednesday night. Let me go back in and take a look. I seem to have forgotten if we're doing is. I think next Wednesday we're doing the Groot shorts, maybe. Um, but let me go back and find it unless Desi's in chat and can tell us. But we're going to be back next Wednesday night with something. We've got the Groot shorts coming up. We're going to be doing Alley Cat Strikes. That's the thing that's going to happen. So please come back and tune in every Wednesday night for Deep in the Plus, where we go through the Disney Plus catalog and find something that we want to talk about and go deeper into. So Allison, before we get into that, one last thing. WIGS, we love our WIGS members, the WDWNT Interglobe Society. Thank you guys for being members of our family. If you want to find out more about how to become part of the WIGS family, you can go to patreon.com/WDWNT. Also, one more thing before we get to the final on this is that I was at Destination D23 this week. There was a short that they played in its entirety that will be in front of Wish, the 60-second full-length animated feature that comes out on November 22nd. And it was called Once Upon a Studio. I will not be overhyping this enough moving forward to say that when you get to see this, if you haven't already, it was shown at a film festival, I think, the Annecy Film Festival, and it was shown at D20 or Destination D23. But if you haven't seen it yet, have this on your radar. Get to the movie theater early when you go to see Wish. It is amazing. It is a love letter to 100 years of the Disney company, and I can't say enough good things about it. I can't wait to see it again. I just want to put that out there. So we've talked about this movie. We've talked about the live action remakes. We've talked about your connection to the Little Mermaid. But Allison, this is the time that everybody is going to need to know. Would you recommend this movie?
Okay, so I want to say yes, but I'm going to tell everyone no, and here's why. Because because everyone told me no, and so I went in there like this is going to be really bad, like this is going to be unwatchably bad. So then everything sort of was like this could be so much worse, and made me appreciate the things that are like universally appreciated, like Melissa McCarthy's rendition of Ursula, and also Halle Bailey's just performance overall. She's just unbelievably good, and Daveed Diggs, and like I could enjoy those performances. And the stuff that was like that universally panned didn't bother me as much because it wasn't as bad. So I'm gonna say yes, I would, but also just like remember, no, don't. It's terrible, and then go see it, and then see what you think.
Sorry about that. So I would say I'm not sure, honestly. And it's not the original movie is so good, and this one I feel like is moving as some of those other movies have through the steps of the original movie. And so while I'm watching it, I'm thinking to myself, would I have enjoyed this movie if it wasn't giving props to the original movie? Like if the original movie didn't exist, this is a quality movie. It's a well done movie. The acting, except for King Triton, I think the acting is pretty good. Honestly, I would say go watch the original and then go watch Splash, because if you're talking about a movie where a mermaid comes to the big city and hangs out with people and is keeping a secret, that one I think is a better movie that still stands the test of
And
time.
then watch our deep episode of Splash.
Yeah, and then watch this one, I guess, because but again, I mean, there's so many people on the fence about this one. I just love the original so much. This didn't give me enough to bring us into the next one. As a movie, it's good. it's a good movie. I just there's so much other stuff on there, and I'm still on the fence about some of these live actions. But we want to hear from you guys. Let us know in the comments below what you thought of this movie if you've watched it. What you think of live action movies, the adaptations in general, because I always love seeing people's takes on that. And thank you for watching. And Desi has confirmed that next week is Groot, the 20th, the 27th. We are coming back with Alley Cat Strike. The Brink team's going to be back talking about that one. And this is their chance for redemption. This is Patrick's movie, so it should be pretty good. But thank you guys again for watching. We hope to see you this Sunday night on Park Center, where we're going to be talking about all the Destination D23 stuff that we picked up on last week. Also, don't forget News Tonight tomorrow night, and also Disney Entertainment News Drop. So we get a lot of content for you guys to consume. Hopefully you enjoy it, and we will see you guys next time. Have a great week. Be safe.